The price of your next car is about to skyrocket. The U.S. auto industry, worth $1.5 trillion, is heading straight for a disaster. Washington's latest tariff war isn't just targeting China anymore. It's hitting Canada, and now Ottawa is fighting back in a way that could cripple American manufacturing for years. But here's the real problem. It's not just Canada. The European Union is joining in. That means supply chains are breaking, factories are slowing, and entire industries are on the brink. Stick around, because by the time we're done, you'll see why this might be the biggest economic realignment of the decade. Trump just pulled the biggest protectionist move in decades, slapping a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles and hiking tariffs on steel, aluminum, and tech imports. The White House says this is about saving American jobs. But here's the problem. When the U.S. starts a trade war, its allies get caught in the crossfire. And Canada? It's at ground zero. Right now, 75% of Canadian exports go to the U.S. That's $500 billion worth of trade annually. But Trump's tariffs are about to make it impossible for Canada to compete in its biggest market. So Canada has a choice: accept these economic hits or fight back. And let me tell you, Ottawa is fighting. But what exactly does Canada's counterstrike look like? And could it collapse the U.S. auto industry? Canada's latest Arctic military expansion isn't just about securing its northern borders. It's a direct response to growing geopolitical tensions with the U.S. and the increasing militarization of the region. Ottawa has announced billions in new defense spending, including the deployment of next-generation surveillance systems, icebreakers, and upgraded military bases in the Arctic. This move follows Washington's heightened interest in Arctic dominance, with the U.S. ramping up military exercises and reinforcing its own presence near Alaska. Canada sees this as a strategic necessity, ensuring its sovereignty over the Northwest Passage, a vital shipping route that is becoming increasingly accessible due to climate change. But there's more at play here. Canada's Arctic expansion is also a signal to NATO and European allies that it is taking a more assertive role in northern security, especially as Russia and China grow more aggressive in the region. With the U.S. pushing for a greater military presence in Canadian-controlled Arctic waters, Ottawa is making it clear that it won't be sidelined in decisions about the North. This shift in strategy is fueling speculation that Canada may be preparing to challenge U.S. influence over Arctic defense policy, further complicating an already tense trade and diplomatic relationship between the two nations. Canada isn't just retaliating, it's targeting the economic arteries of American industry. After Washington imposed steep tariffs on steel, aluminum, and key imports, Ottawa is preparing countermeasures that could shake the U.S. economy to its core. Canada supplies nearly half of the aluminum and 35% of the steel used in U.S. auto manufacturing, and a retaliatory tariff could send production costs soaring. Meanwhile, over $32 billion in U.S. agricultural exports flow north every year. But now, beef, pork, and soybeans face potential restrictions. This move could hammer Midwest farmers, many of whom are already struggling with rising debt and falling commodity prices. The shock won't just be felt at the corporate level. Consumers could see car prices jump by thousands of dollars, while food inflation surges in grocery aisles across America. Tesla is already reeling from a 32% drop in stock value this year, supply chain disruptions, and brutal price wars with Chinese EV makers. Now, Canada may strip US-made EVs of tax incentives, making Tesla's models far less attractive to Canadian buyers. Canada is Tesla's second largest market in North America, and losing those subsidies could gut demand overnight. With production costs already stretched, Elon Musk's company faces an uphill battle to maintain profitability if Ottawa shifts incentives toward European and domestic electric vehicle manufacturers. This is not just about Tesla. Ford, GM, and Rivian are also bracing for impact as Canada recalibrates its EV policy in response to Washington's economic aggression. The European Union isn't sitting idle. It's drafting a $50 billion retaliation package aimed at neutralizing U.S. tariffs. Brussels is preparing new duties on American auto exports, agricultural goods, and industrial products, directly countering Washington's protectionist policies. European officials are also exploring broader supply chain agreements with Canada and China, ensuring that European industries can bypass the US for key raw materials. With Germany and France pushing for a stronger EU response, the potential for an all-out trade conflict is escalating, threatening billions in American exports and cutting deeply into industries that depend on the European market. American tech companies are staring down the barrel of regulatory crackdowns as Brussels uses the trade dispute to push aggressive digital sovereignty laws. The EU is advancing policies that could limit Apple, Google, and Meta's dominance, with proposed measures aimed at higher taxation, tighter antitrust enforcement, and restricted access to European consumer data. U.S. tech firms generate over $400 billion annually from Europe, but with Canada aligning itself more closely with EU digital policies, Silicon Valley could face a coordinated regulatory attack. If Canada and the EU tighten digital trade laws, American firms could lose access to one of their most lucrative global markets, shifting the balance of power toward European and Asian tech giants. Canada is making a deliberate pivot away from Washington's economic influence, strengthening its trade network with the European Union at a historic pace. Ottawa and Brussels have finalized $100 billion in new trade agreements in sectors ranging from energy and infrastructure to advanced manufacturing. Since 2022, Canada's exports to the EU have surged by 30%, reflecting a strategic realignment that reduces dependence on U.S. markets. With America embracing economic nationalism, Canada is ensuring its long-term stability by deepening its partnerships with European economies that offer greater predictability and fewer trade restrictions. Canada is sitting on some of the world's largest reserves of lithium, cobalt, and nickel, minerals that are essential for everything from EV batteries to military hardware. Until now, the U.S. relied heavily on Canadian supply, but new agreements between Ottawa and the EU are shifting exclusive access to European buyers. With lithium demand expected to double by 2030 and European automakers ramping up EV production, this could leave the U.S. scrambling for alternative sources. If Washington loses priority access to Canada's critical minerals, American industries could fall behind China and Europe in the race for battery production and clean energy dominance. French President Emmanuel Macron has emerged as one of the loudest critics of Trump's trade policies, calling them a threat to global economic stability. France is leading EU efforts to counter U.S. tariffs with targeted economic measures, including expanded European industrial subsidies that favor domestic firms over American competitors. Paris is also pushing for deeper integration with Canada and Asia, reinforcing supply chains that bypass Washington's influence. The French government has increased its manufacturing investment by 40% over the past 2 years, a move aimed at ensuring that European companies remain competitive even as U.S. trade policies grow more aggressive. Germany, as the largest economy in Europe, is taking decisive steps to reduce its reliance on U.S. imports. Berlin has been strengthening economic ties with Canada and China, laying the groundwork for supply chain independence from American manufacturers. Germany's automotive sector alone generates $400 billion annually, and if Berlin shifts sourcing away from the U.S., American suppliers could lose billions in contracts. With the EU backing new trade policies that favor inter-European partnerships, U.S. businesses are facing the real possibility of being sidelined from one of the world's most profitable markets. Trump's aggressive trade stance isn't just impacting current relations, it's accelerating the formation of an alternative global economic bloc. Canada and the EU are expanding their partnerships, while Asian economies like Japan, South Korea, and India are reevaluating their reliance on U.S. trade. In just the past year, Canada-China trade has increased by 20%, signaling a diversification strategy that reduces dependence on American markets. If more nations begin coordinating their trade regulations and supply networks, the U.S. could find itself increasingly isolated from the future of global commerce. If this trade realignment continues, the U.S. could face a new economic reality where its once dominant position is no longer guaranteed. With Canada and Europe forging independent trade strategies, American manufacturers will struggle with higher costs, reduced market access, and growing competition from foreign suppliers. The U.S. auto industry, already battling inflation and labor disputes, could see widespread layoffs, factory closures, and declining production. If Washington fails to de-escalate its trade war, it risks turning America from a global leader into an isolated economic force, forced to play catch-up in the next wave of global trade. This isn't just about tariffs, it's about who controls the next era of global trade. If Canada and the EU finalize their economic separation from the US, American businesses, workers, and consumers will all feel the impact. So does Washington reverse course, or are we headed for a full-blown economic Cold War that reshapes the world as we know it? Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Watch another one of our video that is now on your screen.